It is week 17 of the 2022 NFL season, which means it's the penultimate weekend of the regular season. Just 32 more games left in the regular season, and then it's playoff time. And we have four different types of teams going into week 17. We have teams that have already clinched a spot in the playoffs. We have teams that control their own destiny. We have teams that need some help. And we have teams that are looking to play spoiler. Johnny Talk Sports here to bring you my Week 17 NFL predictions. And without further ado, let's get right into it. As always, we begin with TNF. And this week for TNF, the Cowboys and the Titans. Now, right away, I want to point out the Cowboys are 10-point favorites. Now, anyone that knows me knows that more often than not, I am very suspicious of double-digit lines. For this instance, part of me understands Vegas's reasoning for this 10-point spread. Another part of me is saying that this is another trap by the sports books. Now, the Titans are without Ryan Tannehill for the rest of the year. So they're now relying on Malik Willis, the rookie quarterback out of Liberty, to lead them to the playoffs. As the Titans, they control their own destiny. If they win this week and next week, they will win the AFC South. While the Cowboys, they're coming off of a big win against the Eagles on Christmas Eve, but the Eagles were down to Gardner Minshew at quarterback. So I am taking the Cowboys in this game, but I am a bit concerned about this line, though. If Derrick Henry has a good game for the Titans, they will easily cover, if not win this game. But the Titans, they have one of the worst secondaries in the entire NFL. And I just think that Dak has a field day against this Titans secondary. CeeDee Lamb has another big day as well, like he did against the Eagles last week. And I am picking the Cowboys in this game. So I don't know by how much, though, but all I know is Cowboys money line is what the pick should be if you are a bettor. Up next, we have a game where I unfortunately had to pick somebody to win, and I believe this is the only matchup this week that has no playoff implications whatsoever, as both teams are eliminated from playoff contention. I unfortunately have to pick a winner here, and I'm honestly just going to pick the Falcons. One, because I'll give them the home field advantage, I guess. And it's going to be a boring matchup here. It's going to be Colt McCoy or Trace McSorley versus Desmond Ridder. And there's really nothing exciting about this. I don't know why anybody would watch this game. It's honestly a tank bowl. I think both teams, they should want to lose this game to almost cement themselves into a top 5 draft pick in April's draft. But I'm going to pick the Falcons. Honestly, no reason whatsoever. But I just had to pick somebody. And I'm just going to pick the Falcons. Don't know why, but I am. Up next, we have the Bears and the Lions. And we saw this matchup earlier in the season. The Lions defense, they gave up yards, they gave up points, but their defense rose to the occasion when it mattered. And I'm intrigued to see how they come out in this game, as last week they had what I believe was their worst performance of the season. They have their playoff hopes now in jeopardy after that loss to the Panthers last week. There was a chance where they could potentially control their own destiny, but they laid an egg against the Panthers in a game where they were heavily expected to win. Well, not really heavily, but a lot of the public was taking the Lions last week, myself included. But the Panthers, they surprised everyone last week, including myself, with how effective they were at running the football. Now, they had a hard time stopping Fields in the last game, but I think the Lions, they come out, they win this game. They know that their playoff hopes may be in jeopardy, but they're not over. And I think the Lions, they win a must-win game in Week 17 to keep those playoff hopes alive. And the Bears, I think they're just worried about April's draft at this point. Because right now the Bears possess the second pick in April's NFL draft, so likely Will Anderson out of Alabama is on the horizon for the Bears. Up next, we have the Broncos and the Chiefs. And the Broncos, they're coming off of an absolute embarrassment on Christmas Day, getting embarrassed by the Rams 51-14 in front of the children on Nickelodeon. Russell Wilson gets absolutely roasted by Patrick Starr, who, for those of you that don't know, it obviously is a cartoon character. And Nathaniel Hackett gets fired the next morning, which honestly, the firing of Nathaniel Hackett, that is the best thing about the Broncos Christmas. It was about maybe 8 to 10 weeks overdue. And now they go on the road at Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are a 13-point favorite. And it's a reasonable line. In fact, the Chiefs, they should and better win by at least 17 points. If not, I'm a little bit concerned. We've talked all year long about how good the Broncos defense has been, but they weren't good on Christmas Day. But I am picking the Chiefs. The Chiefs, they should cover, but who knows at this point? The NFL has just been so weird this season. Chiefs should win easily. Up next, we have the Dolphins and the Patriots. And I need to be honest, I am unsure who to pick in this game. I'm undecided. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was placed in concussion protocol once again, as this is the third time he's been placed in concussion protocol. And I believe the least amount of days that someone can clear the concussion protocol is 4 days. Now, as much as I am undecided, I am leaning towards the Patriots, because I don't think the Dolphins are going to play Tua in this game. Even though Tua gives them the best chance to win this particular game and any other game, I think they want to avoid what happened last time he got cleared for concussion protocol too quickly. It was perhaps the most horrific moment that I ever witnessed watching NFL football. So I'm leaning towards New England in this, but if Tua plays, I like the Dolphins. If he doesn't, which I'm leaning toward he's not playing, I like the Patriots. Up next, we have the Colts and the Giants. The Colts eliminated from playoff contention. Nick Foles looked abysmal on Monday Night Football, as once again the Colts have looked like they've already failed the next quarterback they were trying out to be their future quarterback, as they look to replace Andrew Luck, who retired abruptly years ago. Just another quarterback that's been through that system that did not work out well. And the Giants, they still have playoff hopes. Even though I thought the Giants' season was going to really collapse at the seams, it's looking like it isn't the case. I think the Giants, they win this game. As the Giants, they're one of those teams that controls their own destiny. They just got to take care of business, they'll be in the playoffs. And I'm picking the Giants to win this game. And if the Giants, if they make the playoffs, I think Brian Daboll should at least be a finalist for Coach of the Year. He should at least be in top 3 consideration if the Giants make the playoffs. Up next, we have the Saints and the Eagles. The Eagles, with a win here, would clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC, and that would be huge for Philly. The last time they had the number 1 seed, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. And they take on a Saints team that has had a disappointing season. And I am going to pick the Eagles, and not only will they get the number 1 seed, but it makes their first-round pick higher in April's draft, as they possess the Saints' first-round pick. And despite Jalen Hurts' status being uncertain for this game, even if it is Gardner Minshew at quarterback for the Eagles, I do think that Gardner Minshew is capable of beating the Saints, as the Saints are nothing like the Cowboys, and I'm saying that in a non-positive type of way. So the Eagles, they should win this game against the Saints, although some of the injuries that they are experiencing right now, it is concerning down the stretch, but I think for this particular game, I think they should be fine. But we'll see what happens down the road for the Eagles. Up next, we have the Panthers and the Buccaneers. Now, the Panthers dominated the first time these two teams played, but this was a game the Buccaneers, they could have taken the lead early and honestly should have. Mike Evans, on the opening drive of the game, dropped a wide-open touchdown pass. It was literally a walk-in touchdown for Mike Evans, if he makes the catch. But he did not make the catch, and it ultimately summed up the day for the Buccaneers, as it was a struggle to move the ball, as it's been a struggle to move the ball for the Buccaneers throughout the majority of the season, pretty much the entire season, with the exception of maybe a couple of games. But I think this time the Buccaneers will be just fine. If they can contain the running game, as the Panthers, they have leaned on the running game throughout this entire season. And if they can force the Panthers to have to throw the ball to win the game, I like their chances because the Buccaneers, they still have one of the better defenses in the NFL. And I think they win this time, as this is a win and you're in for the Buccaneers. So I like Tampa Bay to win and clinch their spot in the playoff. Up next, we have the Browns and the Commanders. Once again, we saw another abysmal performance by the Browns offense with Deshaun Watson under center. And I think it's only going to get worse, as the Browns, they've been reliant on their running game for so long now. Not only just this season, but the season before that and the one before that. So the last 3 seasons, they've essentially been relying on that running game heavily. And the fact the Browns gave up so much for Deshaun Watson. I mean, I was wanting to see the Browns succeed with Deshaun Watson. I really was. I just want to see Cleveland fans happy. I want to see the Cleveland Browns fans get to experience a deep playoff run, maybe even a Super Bowl appearance, but it's honestly not happening. I mean, I get that Deshaun Watson hasn't played competitive football in over 2 years, going into this stint with him for the remainder of the season, but he's just really looked abysmal. I don't know what it is, but I think the Commanders win this game as the Commanders. They're a team that they still have a playoff shot to get in there, and I think they will. I think they win this game, and they inch closer to the playoffs. Browns, I just don't know about them at this point. It's got to be another game where they rely heavily on Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Up next, we have the Jaguars and the Texans. And will the Texans do it once again? The 3rd week in a row now, they have played hard from start to finish, but this time they pulled off an upset against the Titans. And now they go up against the Jaguars team that they did struggle earlier in the season, but they've been getting better each and every single week. And the Jaguars, they are another team this week that they're in a position where they control their own destiny. And if they win this week and next week, they win the AFC South and they'll be in the playoffs. So the Texans, even though a loss this week, they will clinch the number 1 pick in April's NFL draft. They're going to be in a position to play spoiler. And I think the Jaguars, they do win this game, and the Texans will clinch that number 1 overall pick, and I think they will likely draft quarterback out of Alabama, Bryce Young. Even though the Texans, they have been playing hard these last several weeks, I just can't pick against a team that is getting better and better each and every single week. And plus the Jaguars, they are a much more rested team in this matchup than the Texans. Up next, we have the 49ers and the Raiders. The Raiders are coming off of a heartbreaking loss last week to the Steelers on Christmas Eve night on the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, while the 49ers, a dominant win over the Commanders. The 49ers, they are at this point, I think, the hottest team in the league. Them and the Bengals, the 2 hottest teams in the league right now. And I think the 49ers, they continue that hot streak of theirs. The Raiders, they are defeated at this point, as that loss last week to the Steelers, really a season breaker for them, as that pretty much ended their playoff hopes. So I'm going with the 49ers to pick up yet another win. I am interested to see how the Raiders perform in this game, as they could really cause some chaos here playing spoiler on a team that is a contender and maybe even the favorite in the NFC if the NFC playoffs started right now. As if they started this week, my money would be on the 49ers winning the NFC, but they're still a couple weeks away. So anything can happen from now until the start of the playoffs, but I'm picking the 49ers to continue their hot streak. Up next, we have the Jets and the Seahawks, 2 teams that still have playoff hopes. So this is one of the biggest games of the week for the playoff race. For the Jets, Mike White will be the starter at quarterback, as he is going to play this week after missing the last couple of games with injured ribs. While the Seahawks, they have done pretty well defensively, despite their defense being inconsistent throughout the year, but their offense has struggled in these last few weeks. As Geno Smith does not look good now as he did early in the season, and that's a big reason why I'm picking the Jets. An inconsistent Seahawks defense. I think Mike White is going to potentially have a field day against the Seahawks defense. The Jets are the more physical defense. The Jets are the more well-rested team in this matchup. Zach Wilson isn't playing this game. He's ruled inactive for the game. So Zach Wilson can't mess things up for the Jets. Up next, the Vikings and the Packers. Now, the Packers are 3.5-point favorites in this game. And the last time I saw the Vikings as an underdog, I thought that Vegas was being disrespectful by having them be 2.5-point underdogs against the Lions. Well, I'm not going to fall for this again. The Vikings, they deserve to be underdogs in this matchup. For starters, this game is in Lambeau Field in January, which means it's a cold weather game. So advantage Packers all day and all night, depending on when the game is. But in this instance, it's mid-afternoon. By the time the game reaches halftime, it's going to be under the lights. And the Packers, they had an opportunity to seize some momentum in the opener when these two teams faced off against each other. But Christian Watson dropped a wide open touchdown pass on the first play of the game and the first play of the season for the Packers. And Christian Watson, he has gone on a redemption tour ever since then, as he has been off to a run up until 1 week where he did not do so well. He had an opportunity to get a touchdown against the Rams a couple weeks ago, but he did not. So he's been a little bit cold lately, but he got on a hot streak in that Cowboys game, and it carried into a couple more weeks. So Christian Watson is going for the Packers. Allen Lazard, he had a solid game last week as he has been inconsistent throughout most of the season. And this is the perfect time for the Packers to be hot, as they're in a position, if they win out and they get a little bit of help, they can sneak into the playoffs. And I think the Packers, they win this game. I think they make the adjustments that they did not succeed on in the first week, and they win this game. The Vikings, they're winning a lot of one-possession games, which you got to give them credit for, but you got to think about how these one-possession games are being won. For example, last week against the Giants aren't the same animal as the Eagles, the Cowboys, 49ers. So I'm taking the Packers in this one. Up next, we got the Rams and the Chargers. The Rams are coming off their best game of the season against the Broncos on Christmas Day, putting up 50 points against an elite defense like the Broncos. While the Chargers, they have clinched a spot in the playoffs. Justin Herbert will be in his first playoff game in a couple of weeks. And I'm wondering, does Brandon Staley and the Chargers, do they start thinking about resting some of their players for the playoffs? I don't think they do it this week. I am picking the Chargers to win this game. But I think next week they're going to be resting a lot of their key players in their final game of the regular season. But I think Chargers win this week. Up next, Sunday Night Football between
Steelers and the Ravens.
Steelers and the Ravens. Sunday Night Football. This game was flexed into the Sunday Night Football time slot, replacing the Rams and the Chargers. And I applaud the NFL for doing this. I was worried they weren't going to flex the Sunday Night Football game this week, as they should have to begin with after seeing the matchup. But the Steelers and the Ravens, an AFC North showdown. It's possible the Steelers, they might not have playoff hopes heading into this game. And this is a game I'm undecided on, as I think it's going to be simple for me. If Lamar Jackson is playing for the Ravens this week, I like the Ravens. But if Lamar Jackson is not playing, then I like the Steelers. So it's a matter of, will Lamar Jackson play or not? This is the second of two games I'm undecided on this week. And it's all going to depend on what the quarterback situation will look like for the Ravens. As the Ravens, they have one of the better defenses in the NFL. I expect the Ravens defense, even without Lamar, to stay in from start to finish, but if he's not playing, I like the Steelers to win a low-scoring game. But if Lamar plays, I think the Ravens win by at least a touchdown. Week 17 wraps up with Monday Night Football, the Bills and the Bengals, and I cannot wait for this one. Two of the best quarterbacks in the league going at it in Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. The Bills are a slight favorite. In fact, only a 1-point favorite. I think that this game will go down to a pick'em by the time Monday night rolls around, if not before that. I think it's going to turn to a pick'em at some point. And I have talked about the Bills' defense not impressing me in the last month and a half. I feel like I broke a record saying it. They did well last week against the Bears. But I want to see the Bills' defense be challenged by an offense like the Bengals. And I'm going to go with the team that has the hot hand, and that is the Bengals. I think this game has the potential of being a shootout, but a couple times I've thought a game will be a shootout. It becomes your standard 24-20 type of game, which I think no matter what happens, I think the Bengals, they win this game, as their defense is underrated and it doesn't really get talked about as much as when we talk about the Bengals, we typically talk about their offense and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon. Even Samaje Perine has been getting involved in this Bengals offense in these last few weeks. But I'm picking the Bengals to win this game in what I think is going to be a pick'em by the time Monday night rolls around, if not before that. And that will do it for my Week 17 NFL predictions. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, have a good day. Enjoy Week 17 of the NFL season, and Happy New Year to everybody. Talk to you next time. Take care.